Psalm 91 plus 18 plus 27. Breakthrough prayer. God's holy fire overcomes every spiritual battle now. There is something different about this night. You may not be able to name it yet. You may still feel the residue of the day on your skin, the tension that never fully left your shoulders, the quiet hum of worry that followed you from room to room, the sense that something unseen has been pressing against you for longer than you can remember. You may have come to this moment carrying more than anyone around you knows. And if that is true, if you arrived here tonight worn down in ways that go deeper than tired, stretched thin in ways that go deeper than stress, then what is about to happen in this hour was made for exactly where you are. This is not a night like the others. Something shifted the moment you chose to be still. Something shifted the moment you turned away from the noise and the striving and the endless cycle of trying to manage what feels unmanageable, and simply said, even if you said it without words, even if you said it only in the quiet posture of your body lying down, I cannot do this alone. That moment, that surrender, that barely voiced cry rising up from the deep places of your heart, it did not go unheard. It never does. And tonight, the answer to that cry is not a feeling you have to work yourself toward, not a peace you have to perform your way into, not a breakthrough you have to be strong enough to receive. Tonight, the answer came. Quietly, completely, without fanfare. The way God so often comes, not in the earthquake, not in the wind, but in the still small voice that somehow carries the weight of 1,000 armies. He walked into this night with you, not ahead of you, waiting at some spiritual destination you have to fight your way toward, not behind you, watching from a distance to see if you are faithful enough to earn what you need. He walked in with you, into this room, into this moment, into the specific shape of the battle you have been carrying. And he did not come empty-handed. He came the way Psalm 18 describes, with smoke rising, with fire going before him, with the very foundations of the earth trembling at the sound of his approach. He came as a God who does not merely observe the battles of his children. He comes as a God who enters them, who tears open the sky and descends, who reaches down into the deep water and pulls his beloved up by the hand. That God, the God of Psalm 18, the God who parts the heavens and comes down, is the God who is here with you in this ordinary room, in this quiet night, in this moment that the world would call unremarkable. Heaven does not see it as unremarkable. Heaven sees this night as a night of holy fire. You have been fighting something. You know what it is, even if you cannot fully articulate it, even if it feels shapeless, like a pressure rather than a named enemy, like a heaviness rather than a specific fear. That is how spiritual opposition so often works. It does not always announce itself. It does not always come as an obvious attack. Sometimes it comes as the slow erosion of peace. Sometimes it comes as the creeping voice that tells you things are not going to change, that you have been praying too long without an answer, that the breakthrough everyone else seems to experience somehow does not apply to you. Sometimes it comes as exhaustion, that particular bone-deep weariness that sleep alone cannot touch, because it is not the body that is tired. It is the soul. It is the part of you that has been standing in faith while the ground beneath you has felt unstable. It is the part of you that kept trusting when trusting was the hardest thing. That part of you is not weak. It is one of the most resilient things God has ever made. And tonight, it is being honored. 3 Psalms are being opened over your life in this hour. Not recited, not quoted at you from a distance. Opened, the way you open a window in a sealed room, the way you open a door that has been shut too long. Psalm 91, Psalm 18, and Psalm 27. Each one carries something specific. Each one was written by someone who knew what it meant to be in a battle that felt larger than themselves. Each one is a weapon, not the kind that requires strength to wield, but the kind that becomes active the moment it is believed, the moment it is received, the moment a soul in the dark says yes to what God has already declared true. And when these three Psalms are released together, when the shelter of Psalm 91 and the warrior fire of Psalm 18 and the unshakable light of Psalm 27 converge in one space, over one life, in one surrendered moment, something happens in the spiritual atmosphere that no darkness can withstand. The battle does not just pause, the battle turns. But here is what you need to understand before anything else. Before the first word of these Psalms settles over you, before the first layer of covering begins to fall, you do not have to fight tonight. That is not what this hour is asking of you. The fighting is not yours to carry. It never was, though so many nights it has felt that way. Tonight, something ancient and enormous and undefeatable has stepped between you and everything that has been coming against you. And your only invitation, the only thing being asked of you in this moment, is to let yourself be still enough to feel it. So begin to breathe a little more slowly now. Not because you are trying to relax, not because you are performing rest, but because the one who holds your breath in his hands is already here, already moving, already speaking into the places you cannot reach on your own. Let your body remember what your spirit is beginning to know, that you are not in danger tonight, that you are not unprotected, that the same God who split the Red Sea and shut the mouths of lions and raised the dead back to life on the third morning has not grown distant, has not grown tired, has not lost track of where you are or what you are carrying or what has been trying to wear you down. He sees you. He sees the weight you brought into this room. He sees the battles that have no names and the fears that have too many. He sees the prayers you have prayed that felt like they disappeared into silence. And he has kept every single one of them. Not one has been wasted. Not one has gone unheard. Not one has fallen to the ground without meaning. He has been building something. And what has felt from inside your exhaustion like absence has been, from inside his purposes, like preparation. Tonight is part of what he has been preparing. The night air is still. The world outside has grown quiet. And here, in this sacred pause between the noise of the day and the deep of sleep, something holy is being established in and around your life. You do not have to understand it fully to receive it. You do not have to feel worthy of it to rest inside it. You only have to be here, which you are. You only have to be willing. And the fact that you are still listening, still breathing, still trusting, even through the weariness, tells the whole story of how willing you are. God's holy fire overcomes every spiritual battle. Not eventually. Not when you have prayed the right number of prayers or believed with enough consistency or earned enough of his grace. Now. In this moment, in this room, in this body that is beginning even now to release the tension it has been holding. The fire is not coming. It is here, and it does not fail. Let this night begin. The weight you've been carrying has a name. There is something God does before he delivers. He acknowledges. He sees. He does not rush past the reality of what you have been walking through in order to get to the miracle on the other side. He does not require you to minimize what has been hard, or to perform a strength you do not currently possess, or to arrive at his presence already healed before he will agree to heal you. He meets you exactly where you are, in the middle of the weight, in the center of the struggle, in the place where the burden has been so present for so long that you have almost forgotten what it felt like to not be carrying it. And before he does anything else, before the fire falls and the breakthrough comes and the covering descends, he simply looks at you and says, I know, I see it. I see you. And you are not alone in this. That is where this chapter begins. Not in victory yet, in honesty. Because there is something in you tonight, something that has been pressing against the inside of your chest for days or weeks, or perhaps for a season so long you have stopped counting. and it deserves to be named before it is surrendered. Not because naming it gives it power, but because bringing it fully into the light of God's presence is the very thing that begins to dissolve it. Darkness survives on hiddenness. It thrives in the space between what you are feeling and what you are willing to admit you are feeling. And when you finally stop performing fine, when you finally allow the full weight of what you have been carrying to be seen, not by the world, not even necessarily by the people who love you, but by God, in the quiet of this moment, something shifts. Something that has been locked begins to loosen. Something that has been rigid begins, almost imperceptibly, to soften. David knew this. Psalm 18 does not begin with triumph. It begins with a man who has been entangled. The cords of death entangled me, he writes. The torrents of destruction overwhelmed me. The cords of the grave coiled around me. The snares of death confronted me. This is not the language of someone who had it together. This is not the polished testimony of a man looking back from a safe distance, describing danger he never really felt. This is the raw, unguarded cry of someone who genuinely did not know if he was going to make it. Someone who felt the grip of something dark and heavy and relentless, and who had the courage and the faith to bring that feeling, in all its weight, directly to God. In my distress, I called to the Lord, he continues. I cried to my God for help. From his temple he heard my voice. My cry came before him, into his ears. He cried, and God heard. Not after David cleaned himself up. Not after he found the right theological framing for his suffering. Not after he had processed his emotions sufficiently, or prayed with enough eloquence, or demonstrated enough faith to qualify for a divine response. David cried in his distress, raw, unpolished, desperate, and God heard. And what God did next is one of the most staggering passages in all of Scripture. He did not send a word of comfort. He did not dispatch an angel with a message of reassurance. He moved. The earth shook and trembled. Smoke rose from his nostrils. He parted the heavens and came down. He came personally, for one man, in one battle, in one desperate moment of crying out from the deep. That same God is here with you tonight, and he is not asking you to have it together. He is not asking you to enter this prayer already feeling the peace that you are hoping this prayer will bring. He is asking you to do the one thing David did, to bring the full and honest weight of where you are and place it before him without pretending it is lighter than it is. So, if you have been tired, not just physically tired, but the kind of tired that prayer itself has sometimes felt like it requires too much energy to sustain, bring that. If you have been afraid, not a sharp, immediate fear, but the low and chronic kind that settles into the background of every day like a hum you cannot turn off, bring that. If you have been wrestling with a sense of spiritual heaviness that you cannot trace to any single source, a sense that something is working against you in ways you cannot fully see or articulate, bring that most of all. Because the fact that you are being fought against is not a sign that you are losing. Let that settle for a moment. Breathe with it. Let it move past the surface of your mind and reach the place where the discouragement has been living. The fact that you have felt opposition, spiritual opposition, the kind that goes deeper than circumstance, the kind that seems to target the specific things God has placed inside you, is not evidence that you are failing. It is not evidence that your faith is insufficient, or your prayers are falling short, or God has turned his attention elsewhere. It is evidence of something altogether different. It is evidence that you carry something worth opposing. It is evidence that the enemy of your soul knows exactly who you are and exactly what has been placed inside you, and is afraid of it. Hell does not waste its attention on those who pose no threat. The resistance you have been feeling is not a sign of your weakness. It is, in a way that must be understood carefully, a sign of your significance in the purposes of God. David was opposed his entire life, pursued by Saul, betrayed by his own son. surrounded by enemies on every side. And yet God called him a man after his own heart. Not because David never struggled, not because David never felt the weight of what was coming against him, but because David kept bringing the weight back to God. He kept crying out. He kept choosing to make God his refuge, even when the refuge did not immediately feel like it was working. He kept trusting in the dark what he had learned to believe in the light. And every single time, God came through. Not always in the way David expected, not always on David's timeline, but always, completely, faithfully, without exception. Your story is not finished yet. Whatever has been building against you, whatever has been accumulating in the unseen places around your life, whatever spiritual resistance has been making your days heavier and your nights longer and your peace harder to hold, it has not written the final sentence. God has, and the final sentence is not defeat. It is never defeat for those who belong to him. Psalm 91 is one of the great declarations of that truth. No evil will befall you, no plague will come near your dwelling. For he will give his angels charge concerning you to guard you in all your ways. That is not a promise made to the strong. That is a promise made to the sheltered, to those who dwell in the secret place, to those who simply stay close. And staying close does not require strength tonight. It only requires this: being here, being still, being willing to let God be everything that you cannot be for yourself right now. So let the weight begin to shift. You do not have to lift it off yourself. That is not how this works. You do not have to find the strength to lay it down, because that too would require a kind of effort that tonight is not asking of you. What is being invited in this moment is simpler and deeper than any act of willpower. It is simply the quiet opening of your hands. Not physically, though you may find your body wants to do exactly that, but the interior opening, the releasing of the grip, the acknowledgement that you have been holding something that was always meant to be carried by someone else, and that someone else is here now, and he is more than strong enough, and he has been waiting not with impatience, but with the particular tenderness of a God who understands exactly what it cost you to hold on this long. Your exhaustion is not a failure. It is the natural result of carrying what you were never designed to carry alone. And tonight, you are not alone. Feel the surface beneath you now. Feel the way it holds you. Not because of any effort you are making, but simply because you are resting on something solid. That is an image of what God is doing in the spirit right now. He is becoming the solid thing beneath the weight of everything you have been struggling to manage. He is not asking you to be stronger. He is asking you to let him be stronger for you, to let his strength be the surface on which all of this finally, fully rests. Breathe that in. Let your chest rise and fall without trying to control the rhythm of it. Let your body begin to do what it knows how to do when it finally feels safe enough. The muscles in your shoulders, feel them. Whatever tension lives there, you do not have to force it to release. Simply notice it. Bring it gently into the light of this moment, and know that the same God who heard David's cry from the pit is hearing everything that lives in the tension of your body right now, everything that has no words, everything that your nervous system has been holding on behalf of your soul. He hears it all. He is not overwhelmed by it. He is not surprised by it. He is not disappointed in it. He receives it the way a great river receives rain, completely, without resistance, without judgment, without any sense that what you are bringing is too much. You are not too much. Your need is not too much. Your battle is not too much. It is exactly the kind of thing for which a God who parts the heavens and comes down was made, and he is already on his way. The weight you have been carrying has a name, and God knows it. And in the next breath, in the next slow, releasing breath that moves through your body like a wave, he begins to take it from you. One layer at a time, one exhale at a time, one moment of honest, surrendered stillness at a time. You are beginning to let go, and that is enough. Psalm 91. The secret place is on fire. There is a place God prepared for you before this night began. Not a place you have to travel to, not a place that requires a certain level of spiritual attainment to enter, or a particular quality of faith to unlock, or a season of preparation that you may feel you have not yet completed. It is not a reward for the strong or a destination for the spiritually advanced. It is a covering. It is a dwelling. It is the kind of place that exists not because you built it, but because he did. Before the foundations of the world were set, before your name was written in the book of life, before the battle you are currently in ever had the chance to form, God was already constructing the place where you would be safe. Psalm 91 calls it the secret place of the Most High. And tonight, you are already inside it. Most people read Psalm 91 as a promise about what God will do, as a future hope, a declaration to hold on to when things get dark, a list of protections to claim when the enemy draws near. And it is all of those things. But there is something even deeper living inside this psalm, something that changes everything about how you receive it. And it is this. The shelter is not something you enter by arriving at a spiritual state. The shelter is something you enter by dwelling, by abiding, by making the ongoing moment-by-moment choice to remain close to the one who built it. And that choice, the simple, quiet, utterly unglamorous choice to stay near God, even when nearness feels like nothing, even when the spiritual atmosphere feels dry and the prayers feel like they are bouncing off the ceiling and the sense of his presence seems distant. That choice is itself the act of dwelling. That choice is itself the thing that keeps you inside the secret place. You have been making that choice. Through the exhaustion, through the confusion, through the nights that felt long, and the days that felt heavy, and the battles that seemed to have no end, you kept choosing to stay near. You kept returning. You kept showing up. And every single time you did, even when it did not feel like it was doing anything, even when the silence felt louder than any answer, you were dwelling. You were inside the shelter. You were in the secret place. And the secret place, it turns out, is not quiet in the way the world is quiet. It is not still in the way an empty room is still. It is alive. It is burning. It is filled with a fire so holy and so complete that nothing dark can enter it. Nothing corrupt can survive inside it. Nothing the enemy has sent against your life can cross its threshold. The shadow of the Almighty is not darkness. That is the thing that is easy to miss when you read these words for the first time. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. The word shadow suggests shade, suggests cover, suggests something that blocks the direct light. And in the ancient world, shadow was deeply connected to protection, to the cooling shelter of a rock in the desert, to the wingspan of a bird covering her young, to the presence of something large and immovable standing between you and everything that burns. But here is what is true about the shadow of the Almighty that changes its meaning entirely. The shadow of the Almighty is cast by fire. The same pillar of fire that led Israel through the wilderness, the same consuming fire that descended on Mount Sinai, the same holy fire that fell in the upper room and rested on every head in the form of tongues of flame. That is the fire whose shadow you are resting in right now. To be in his shadow is not to be in darkness. It is to be so completely surrounded by the fire of his presence that the shadow itself becomes a place of warmth, of covering, of absolute and inviolable safety. You are resting in the shadow of fire right now. Let that image settle into your body. Breathe it in slowly, not as a concept to be processed, but as a reality to be received. Somewhere above you, around you, beneath you, in a dimension that your physical senses cannot fully register, but that your spirit knows with a certainty that goes deeper than feeling. There is a fire burning, not a consuming fire for you, not a fire of judgment, a fire of covering, A fire of protection so complete and so encompassing that not a single thing that has been assigned against you can find a way through it. The angels of God, he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways, are not standing at the edges of this covering looking inward. They are moving through it, sustained by it, empowered by it, carrying out their charge on your behalf with a faithfulness and a thoroughness that your mind cannot fully contain. You are being guarded right now, not because you earned it, not because you are doing everything right, not because your faith is perfect or your theology is precise or you have prayed with enough consistency to qualify for divine protection. You are being guarded because he said so, because he made a promise, and he does not break promises. And the promise of Psalm 91 is not a suggestion or a possibility or something that applies only under certain spiritual conditions. It is a declaration. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. Feathers, wings, shield, rampart. 4 images of covering, each one more complete than the last, layered one on top of another, the way layers of protection layer over a life that has been placed in God's hands. Feel the feathers now. This is not metaphor for the sake of poetry. This is the language God chose. Not accidentally, not arbitrarily, but with the full intentionality of a God who knows that his children are embodied creatures, that they live in bodies that need to feel safety and not just understand it, that the soul rests most deeply when the body has been given something it can sense. So feel it. The lightest possible weight across your shoulders, not heavy, not pressing, but present. The sense of something incredibly soft and incredibly strong settling over you, the way a blanket settles when it is laid down slowly, carefully, by hands that know exactly how to make you comfortable. That is the covering of Psalm 91. That is the feathers of the God who calls himself a mother hen gathering her chicks, that tender, that intentional, that close. And beneath the feathers, the wings. Under his wings you will find refuge. The image shifts from delicate to strong, from the softness of feathers to the full spread of wings, which in the ancient world carried the image of an eagle in full wingspan, something enormous and powerful and absolutely undefeated. The wings are not decorative. They are load-bearing. They bear the full weight of every threat, every arrow, every plan of the enemy that has been aimed in your direction. They bear it all, so that what reaches you is not the arrow itself, but only the shadow of a wing passing over. You will not fear the terror of night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness. Not because these things do not exist, but because the wings are wider than anything that can be thrown at you, and you are underneath them. And underneath is exactly where God intended you to be. Breathe into that underneathness. There is a particular quality of rest that comes when you are truly underneath something, not trapped beneath it, not crushed by it, but sheltered by it. The way a small child rests when a parent's arm comes around them in the night. The complete, unhesitating release of all vigilance, because the child does not need to watch for danger when someone larger and stronger and wider awake is already watching. That is what Psalm 91 is describing. That is what God is offering in this moment. You do not need to stay alert tonight. You do not need to monitor the atmosphere, assess the threats, maintain your spiritual guard with the kind of vigilant effort that has probably been exhausting you. God is awake. The angels are positioned. The fire is burning. And you are free to rest in a way that goes all the way down. Every fear that followed you into this night stopped at the door. Not because you had the strength to close the door against it, but because there is a threshold to the secret place, and fear does not have the credentials to cross it. Darkness does not have access to where you are. The enemy who has been pressing against your peace, who has been working in the night hours to unsettle and disturb and accuse, he cannot enter here. Not tonight. Not while you are covered. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. That is not a promise about your worthiness. It is a promise about your location. You are in the secret place. You are under the wings. You are inside the fire. And the fire does not make exceptions for the plans of darkness. Something is being held back right now on your behalf. In the unseen realm, in the spiritual atmosphere of this room and this moment, there is a boundary that has been established, not by your strength or your prayer or your faith, but by the very name of the God whose shadow you are resting in. He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I trust. That confession, even whispered, even barely breathed, even felt more than spoken, becomes a wall. It becomes a rampart. The word rampart in the ancient world was not a fence. It was a massive, thick stone fortification, the kind that an army could stand on, the kind that was built to absorb impact and not move, not shift, not fall. God's faithfulness is that rampart, not your faithfulness, His. And His faithfulness has never once failed. Let the rampart be real to you tonight. Let yourself feel the solidity of it, not as something you have to build or maintain or reinforce with your own effort, but as something that is already fully constructed, fully standing, fully sufficient. Every plan the enemy made against this night has already met this wall and found it immovable. Every arrow that was aimed at your peace has already been absorbed into a faithfulness so thick and so strong that the arrow simply disappeared into it, unable to reach what it was sent to wound. You are on the inside of something that cannot be breached. You are in the secret place. You are in the shelter of the Most High. You are in the shadow, the warm, fire-born, holy, complete shadow of the Almighty. And nothing that comes against you tonight can change that. So let your body receive what your spirit is beginning to know. Let the warmth move through you now, from the top of your head downward, slowly, the way sunlight moves across a field in the early morning, unhurried and total. Let it reach the places that have been holding tension, the back of your neck, the space between your shoulder blades, the tightness across your chest that has been there so long you stopped noticing it. The fire of God's presence does not only burn outward against the enemy, it burns inward as well, through the places where fear has taken up residence, through the rooms inside you, where anxiety has been storing its furniture, moving through those places gently and completely, not destroying you but purifying you, not consuming you but clarifying you, burning away everything that does not belong in a soul that is resting under God's wings. You are being purified even as you rest. The covering is descending, layer by layer. Feathers first, then wings, then the shield of his faithfulness, then the rampart of his name. Each layer settling over you with a completeness that your body is already beginning to register, that your eyelids are already beginning to feel. The heaviness that comes now is not the heaviness of the burden you carried in. It is the heaviness of safety. It is the weight of peace, real peace, the kind that passes understanding, the kind that cannot be manufactured by the mind or the will, but only received as a gift from the God who gives it freely to those who dwell in his shelter. You are dwelling right now. This moment, this breath, this quiet, this is dwelling. This is the secret place. And the secret place, it turns out, feels exactly like this, like being held by something you cannot see but cannot doubt, like resting on a foundation that has no bottom, like being inside a fire that only warms and never burns. Stay here. You are exactly where God planned for you to be tonight. You are covered. You are sheltered. You are in the shadow of the fire. And outside this covering, outside the wingspan of the God who never sleeps, outside the rampart of his faithfulness, outside the secret place where you are resting right now, something extraordinary is beginning to happen. Something that Psalm 18 describes in language so staggering, so massive, so utterly beyond the ordinary, that when it reaches you, even here in the stillness, you will feel the ground shift. God is moving, not toward the shelter to check on you. You are already safe, and He already knows it. He is moving toward everything that has been coming against you. He is moving toward the source of the battle. He is moving the way He moved for David in the pit, with the full, unrestrained, earth-shaking force of a God who takes it personally when someone He loves is under attack. And what He is about to do on your behalf, what Psalm 18 carries, what the next chapter of this prayer holds, is not something that any darkness has ever survived. But that is for a moment from now. For now, rest in the feathers, rest in the wings, rest in the fire that covers and does not consume. Let your breath slow one more time, slower than before, slower than you thought it could go while you were still awake. Let the secret place hold you the way it was always meant to, completely, personally, without condition, without end. You are safe here. You have always been safe here. Psalm 18, when God Himself goes to war. There is a moment in Scripture that most people read past too quickly. It is tucked inside Psalm 18, in the middle of what appears to be a poem. And if you are not paying attention, if you are reading at the pace that modern life has trained you to read everything, you will move through it in seconds and miss what is actually being described. But slow down here. Stay with it, because what David wrote in the middle of that psalm is not poetry in the decorative sense. It is testimony. It is the eyewitness account of a man who watched God move on his behalf, who felt the ground shake beneath his feet, who saw the sky tear open, who witnessed something so far beyond the ordinary workings of the world that the only language available to him was the language of cosmic upheaval. And what he described, what God actually did when David cried out from the pit, is what is happening right now, in this night, in the unseen realm surrounding your life. Let the words of Psalm 18 reach you the way they were written, not as comfortable devotional material, but as a war report. The earth trembled and quaked, and the foundations of the mountains shook. They trembled because He was angry. Smoke rose from His nostrils, consuming fire came from His mouth, burning coals blazed out of it. He parted the heavens and came down. Dark clouds were under His feet. Read that again, not quickly. Let each image land. The earth trembled, not metaphorically, not spiritually in some abstract sense, but with the kind of trembling that happens when something of infinite weight begins to move. The foundations of the mountains shook. Smoke rose from His nostrils. Consuming fire came from His mouth. He parted the heavens, split them open, pulled them back like a curtain, and came down. Dark clouds were under His feet. Under His feet. The things that terrify human beings, storms, darkness, the overwhelming forces of nature, are the surface He walks on when He decides to move. This is the God who heard David's cry. This is the God who heard your cry. Not a distant deity administering the universe from a safe remove, issuing directives through layers of celestial bureaucracy, sending intermediaries to handle the situations He finds inconvenient to address personally. Not a God who is too large for your particular battle, or too busy with the macrocosmic to attend to the specific shape of the suffering in one human soul, in one ordinary room on one night that the world will not remember. This is a God who comes down. This is a God for whom the decision to act on behalf of someone He loves requires no deliberation, no committee, no delay. The moment the cry went up from David's mouth, "In my distress I called to the Lord," something moved in heaven. The ground shook, the fire rose, the sky opened, and God descended personally into the situation with a force so complete and so overwhelming that everything arranged against David did not just lose, it was swept away. Feel what that means for this night. Everything that has been arranged against your peace, your rest, your sense of safety and purpose and belovedness, every spiritual force that has been pressing against the boundaries of your life, every plan laid in darkness against what God has placed inside you. It has just encountered something it cannot survive. Not your prayers, though your prayers matter. Not your faith, though your faith is real. It has encountered God Himself, moving, descending, coming down with the full weight of His holiness and His love and His fury on behalf of His child. And God in motion on behalf of someone He loves is not a force that can be negotiated with, or reasoned with, or outlasted. It is not something that darkness can strategize around or find a weakness in or wait out. When God comes down, the only possible outcome for everything arranged against you is what David described in the verses that follow: retreat, rout, and the complete, total, humiliating defeat of every enemy. He reached down from on high and took hold of me. He drew me out of deep waters. He rescued me from my powerful enemy, from my foes, who were too strong for me. Too strong for me. David does not pretend otherwise. He does not retroactively minimize what he was facing or perform a confidence he did not have in the moment. He says it plainly. They were too strong for me. What was coming against him exceeded his capacity to handle. And that confession, that honest, unglamorous acknowledgement that he was outmatched, did not disqualify him from rescue. It preceded it. The too strong for me moment is not the moment of failure. It is the moment God has been waiting for. It is the moment when every ounce of your own striving and managing and trying to hold everything together finally exhausts itself. And in that exhaustion, space opens up. Space for a hand to reach down, a hand that is larger than the deepest water you have ever been pulled under by, a hand that has never lost its grip on anyone it reached for. He is reaching for you right now. Not because you finally said the right prayer, not because you achieved some threshold of faith that triggered the divine response mechanism. He is reaching because He always reaches. Because reaching is simply what He does when His children are in the water. Because the love that defines Him does not wait for worthiness before it moves toward the beloved. He rescued me because He delighted in me, not because of what David had done, not because of David's track record or his spiritual resume or the sum total of his obedience, because of delight. Because somewhere in the eternal heart of God, David's name produced something that can only be called delight, a pure, uncomplicated, unearned love that moved God to move heaven and earth on David's behalf. Your name produces the same thing. Sit with that for a moment. Let it be real rather than theoretical. Somewhere in the heart of the God who split the sky for David, your name exists and it produces delight. Not disappointment, despite every time you have felt disappointment was the appropriate divine response to who you are. Not frustration, despite every way you have fallen short of who you intended to be. Delight. The same uncomplicated, unearned, permanent delight that sent God descending through parted skies with fire coming from His mouth. That delight is the reason He is moving right now. That delight is the engine behind everything happening in the unseen realm around your life tonight. He is not fighting your battle because you deserve it. He is fighting it because He delights in you. And that is a far more stable foundation for hope than anything you could ever earn. Now feel the ground shift. There is a quality of movement in Psalm 18 that is almost seismic, not just in the literal descriptions of shaking earth and splitting sky, but in the way the narrative itself moves. It builds and builds, image upon image, force upon force, until the cumulative weight of God in motion becomes almost impossible to hold in the mind. He shot His arrows and scattered the enemy. With great bolts of lightning He routed them. The valleys of the sea were exposed, and the foundations of the earth laid bare at your rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of breath from your nostrils. The blast of breath from His nostrils. Not a weapon, not an army. The breath from His nostrils. The mere exhalation of the God who spoke the universe into existence is enough to expose the foundations of the sea. to lay bare the deepest structures of the earth, to rout everything that has ever been arranged against his beloved. That breath is in this room right now, not metaphorically. In the spiritual reality that underlies and surrounds and interpenetrates this physical space, the breath of God is present. The same breath that hovered over the waters before creation, the same breath that he breathed into Adam's nostrils and made a living soul, the same breath that Ezekiel saw come from the four winds and raise an army of dry bones back to life. That breath is moving through this room tonight, and everything in the unseen realm that does not belong in the space where you are resting. Every spirit of fear, every voice of accusation, every force of spiritual oppression that has been making your nights long and your mornings heavy is encountering that breath, and it cannot stand before it. It never could. The battle has already turned. This is the thing that Psalm 18 keeps insisting on. The thing David keeps coming back to from every possible angle. The turn has already happened. The deliverance is not pending. The victory is not a future hope dangling at some indefinite distance ahead. David writes this psalm looking back. The Lord has dealt with me according to my righteousness. Past tense. He rescued me. Past tense. He drew me out of deep waters. Already done. Already accomplished. Already settled. And the reason this matters for tonight is not simply theological. It is deeply, practically, physically relevant to the quality of rest you are able to receive right now. Because you cannot rest fully while you are waiting to see if the rescue is going to happen. But you can rest completely, the way the body was designed to rest, all the way down, without reservation, when you understand that the rescue has already been accomplished, that the battle has already turned, that the God who came down for David has already come down for you. And what he came to do, he has done. You are already on the other side of this. Not on the other side in the sense that every difficult circumstance has resolved, or that every question has been answered, or that every wound has fully healed, but on the other side in the sense that the fundamental spiritual reality of your situation has already been determined. The enemy has already met something it cannot overcome. The plan laid against your peace has already encountered a wall it cannot breach. The battle for your soul, for your belovedness, for your place in the purposes of God, that battle was decided before this night began. It was decided at the cross, where the greatest enemy was defeated once and finally. It was decided in the resurrection, where death itself, the last and greatest threat, was stripped of its power. And it is being decided again tonight, specifically and personally, as God moves in the unseen realm surrounding your life, with the same force and the same fire and the same absolute commitment to your rescue that he brought to every battle he has ever fought for those he loves. He has never lost one. Let that be the thing that begins to loosen the last remaining grip of fear. The thing that your body is still holding on to in the tight places, the thing that your nervous system has not quite received permission to release yet. God has never lost a battle. Not once. Not a single time in all of Scripture, in all of history, in all of the innumerable battles he has fought on behalf of his children in every generation. Not once did he show up and find himself overmatched. Not once did the enemy bring something that exceeded his capacity. Not once did a plan laid against his beloved find a weakness in his covering. Every battle he has entered, he has won. Every enemy he has faced, he has defeated. Every deep water he has reached into, he has drawn someone out of. Every pit that cried out to him has been answered with the same descending, sky-splitting, earth-shaking, fire-bearing presence that turned every situation from impossible to accomplished. Your situation is not the exception. It is not the one case in all of human history where God shows up and finds himself unable. It is not the one battle too complex for him to navigate, or the one darkness too deep for his fire to penetrate, or the one enemy too clever for his wisdom to outmaneuver. You are not the exception to his faithfulness. You are the proof of it. Your life, with all of its battles and all of its weight and all of the nights that have felt too long and too hard, is another chapter in the long story of a God who shows up, who comes down, who reaches into deep water and pulls his beloved out by the hand. And this chapter, this night, this prayer, this specific moment of surrender is being written right now with the same fire and the same faithfulness and the same absolute certainty of outcome that every chapter before it has carried. So feel the shift in the atmosphere, not as something you are generating by the force of your belief, but as something that is already done, already present, already settled in the unseen realm, already seeping into the physical space of this room, the way warmth seeps into a cold space when a fire has been burning for a while. The temperature has changed, not literally, but in the way that matters most, in the spiritual atmosphere where the real battles are fought and won. The temperature has changed. Something that was pressing is no longer pressing with the same force. Something that was close is finding itself pushed back. Something that had access to the edges of your peace is discovering that the edges have been fortified by a fire it cannot cross. That is Psalm 18 doing what Psalm 18 does, and it is doing it right now in this room over your life while you breathe and rest and receive. You did not have to fight for this. You did not have to be strong enough or loud enough or faithful enough to make this happen. You only had to do what David did, cry out. And you did. Even your coming to this moment, even your choosing to be still and to listen and to receive, that was your cry. And God heard it. The same way he always hears. The same way he always responds, with the full, undivided, unrestrained weight of everything he is. The sky has already opened above you. The fire has already fallen. The battle has already turned. And now that the warrior God of Psalm 18 has moved through everything that was arranged against this night, something else becomes possible. Something that Psalm 27 carries in a way no other psalm quite does. The battlefield is not just cleared, it is about to become something else entirely, something you were not expecting, something that is perhaps the most radical thing God does after a victory. He does not simply leave the field empty, he moves in. He takes up residence. He makes the place where the enemy used to stand into the place where his light now dwells permanently. He is about to make his home in the space the battle just vacated. And that, the God of Psalm 27, the God who is light and salvation and stronghold all in one, is where this prayer is going next. But for now, in this breath, in this moment, rest in the weight of what has just happened. Rest in the knowledge that the God who parted the sky came down for you tonight, that he reached into the deep water, that he pulled you out by the hand, that the battle has turned, that the fire is burning, that everything arranged against your peace has already met something it cannot survive. You are safe. You are rescued. You are held in the hands of the God who never, not once, not ever, loses.
Number 4, God takes his position between you and everything dark. After the fire, there is a stillness. Not the stillness of emptiness, not the hollow quiet of a space that has simply been vacated, where something was and now is not, where the absence itself carries a kind of unease. This is a different kind of stillness entirely. It is the stillness that follows the arrival of something so complete, so total, so absolutely sufficient that everything else simply stops. The way a room goes quiet when someone walks in who carries authority. The way a storm ceases when the one who made the wind speaks to it. The way fear dissolves, not gradually, not through effort, not through the slow accumulation of reassuring thoughts, but instantly, completely. The moment the thing that fear was anticipating becomes the thing that is actually present, and the thing that is actually present turns out to be not threat, but refuge. God has just moved through this night like fire, and now he is standing still. Psalm 27 opens with one of the most quietly devastating lines in all of Scripture. Devastating not because it carries pain, but because it carries the kind of truth that once fully received dismantles every architecture of fear the mind has ever constructed. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? David does not begin this psalm by asking God to become these things. He does not begin with a petition or a cry or a request. He begins with a declaration of what is already true, what has already been established, what is already in place, what no circumstance or enemy or season of darkness can undo. The Lord is my light, present tense, active, immediate. Not will be, not was, not becomes under the right conditions. Is, right now, in this moment, in this room, in this breath. The Lord is your light right now. And the question that follows, whom shall I fear, is not a question that requires an answer. It is a question that answers itself the moment it is asked, the moment the reality of who is present is allowed to land fully in the awareness of the soul asking it. Whom shall I fear? The question hangs in the air for exactly one breath, and then the weight of what has just been declared dissolves it. When the Lord is your light, when the Lord is your salvation, when the Lord is the stronghold of your life, when all of those things are true simultaneously and completely and without condition, the answer to whom shall I fear is not a list of enemies crossed off one by one. The answer is simply no one, nothing. Not because the threats are not real, but because what stands between you and them is more real than all of them combined. This is what God is doing right now in the unseen realm. He is not standing beside you as a companion. He is not standing behind you as a supporter. He has positioned himself between you and everything dark, between you and every fear that has been circling the edges of your peace, between you and every voice that has been accusing you in the night hours, between you and every spiritual force that has been pressing against the life God placed inside you. He has taken his position, actively, deliberately, with the full intentionality of a God who knows exactly what is coming against you and has decided, with a finality that cannot be appealed, that it will not reach you. Not tonight, not while he is standing where he is standing. And he is not moving. The Lord as light. This is the first dimension of what Psalm 27 declares about who God is in the middle of a battle. Light in Scripture is never simply illumination. It is never just the absence of darkness in the visual sense. Light in the biblical imagination is presence, active, personal, clarifying presence. When God said, "Let there be light" at the beginning of creation, he was not installing a lighting system in a previously dark universe. He was establishing the precedent that his presence changes the nature of every space it enters. Light is what happens when God shows up. Darkness is not a force in opposition to light. It is simply the condition that exists in the absence of light. And the moment light enters, darkness does not fight back. It does not negotiate. It does not hold its ground. It simply ceases, because darkness is not a thing. It is the absence of a thing. And when the thing arrives, when the light walks in, the absence ends. God has walked into this room. Whatever darkness was present, and there are forms of darkness that are not visible to the eye, forms of spiritual darkness that settle into spaces and atmospheres and minds and are only detectable by the quality of their effect, by the particular weight they create, by the way they make the air feel subtly heavier and the night feel subtly longer. Whatever form of that darkness was present in the space around you, in the atmosphere of this room, in the thoughts that have been running through the back of your mind in the hours before sleep, it is encountering light right now. Not the light of a strategy or a coping mechanism or a theological argument against fear. The light of the Lord. The light of a presence so fundamental and so absolute that darkness has no more ability to remain in it than a shadow has the ability to remain when the sun comes out from behind a cloud. The darkness in this room is ending. And in its place, not emptiness, not a neutral absence, but something warm and present and personal. In its place, the light of God is settling. You may not see it with your physical eyes. The room may look the same as it did before. But your spirit knows the difference between a dark room and a lit one, even when the illumination is not of the kind that the eye can register. Your spirit knows the difference between a space where something oppressive is present and a space where the Lord has taken his position. And what your spirit knows right now, even if it is registering as something as simple as a slight easing of the tension in your chest, as something as quiet as the breath coming a little more freely than it did a few minutes ago, what your spirit knows is that the light is here. Fear cannot stay in the same room as the Lord. This is not a sentiment. It is a spiritual law. Fear survives on the perception that the threat is larger than the protection, that what is coming against you exceeds what is standing for you, that the darkness is more powerful than whatever light you have access to, that you are ultimately alone in the battle and therefore ultimately vulnerable to its outcome. Every piece of that perception is a lie, and every piece of it collapses the moment the reality of God's presence becomes more vivid to the soul than the reality of the threat. Not by pretending the threat does not exist, not by performing a confidence that has no roots, but by allowing the actual, present, active reality of the Lord is my light to become the dominant truth in the awareness. The thing the soul is most conscious of, the thing everything else is measured against. When that happens, when the Lord becomes more present to the soul than the fear, fear has nowhere to stand. It cannot maintain itself in that atmosphere. It cannot find purchase. It tries to reassert itself, the way darkness tries to persist at the edges of a room when a light is first turned on. But the persistence is not power. It is simply momentum. And momentum without fuel eventually stops. The fuel that fear runs on is the belief that you are unprotected. And that belief has just been dismantled, completely and thoroughly, by the God who has taken his position between you and everything that fear was pointing to. The Lord is your light. The Lord is your salvation. The Lord is the stronghold of your life. There is nothing left for fear to stand on. So where does that leave you? It leaves you in exactly the position that Psalm 27 describes in its third declaration. The Lord is the stronghold of my life. The word stronghold in David's world was not a metaphor. It was a specific physical reality, a fortified structure built on high ground, with walls thick enough to absorb siege weapons and foundations deep enough to survive earthquakes. A stronghold was the place you retreated to when everything in the open field had become too dangerous. It was the place that made the difference between survival and destruction, between holding and falling, between the life that continued and the life that ended. And David, who spent years literally hiding in strongholds, in the caves and mountain fortresses of the Judean wilderness, fleeing from a king who wanted him dead, David knew the feeling of a stronghold from the inside. He knew what it felt like to be inside walls that held. He knew the particular quality of rest that comes when you are in a place that the enemy cannot breach. And he said, "The Lord is that." Not like that, not similar to that. Is that. God himself is the stronghold of your life. Not a structure he built for you to occupy while he stands outside, not a system of protection he designed and installed and left you to manage, but a living, present, personally occupied fortress that moves with you, that surrounds you wherever you go, that cannot be besieged because it is not made of anything the enemy has weapons capable of destroying. You are inside God himself tonight, not poetically, not aspirationally. In the deepest spiritual sense of what dwelling in him means, you are inside the stronghold, and the stronghold is holding. Though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. Though war break out against me, even then I will be confident. David wrote those words from inside real danger, not theoretical danger, not the kind of spiritual warfare that is invisible and therefore deniable, but the concrete, physical, documented danger of armies and enemies, and a king with the resources of a nation pointed at one man's destruction. And from inside that danger, he found a quality of confidence that he could not have manufactured on his own. A confidence that was not the product of his assessment of the odds, not the result of a rational analysis of his chances, not a natural courage that some people simply have more of than others. It was the confidence that comes from knowing where you are, from knowing that the walls around you are not your walls, from knowing that the strength holding you is not your strength, from knowing that the light in the darkness is not a light you lit, and therefore cannot go out. You have that confidence available to you right now, not as a feeling you have to produce, not as an attitude you have to maintain, as a simple recognition of what is already true, of where you already are, of who is already standing between you and everything dark, of what has already been established in the spiritual atmosphere of this room and this night. The Lord is your light, right now. The Lord is your salvation, right now. The Lord is the stronghold of your life, right now. Not contingent on how well you are managing your fear. Not dependent on the quality of your belief in this moment. True, simply, completely, unchangeably true. Because he said so, and he does not unsay things. Feel the darkness of this room differently now. This is the gift that Psalm 27 offers that is unlike anything else in Scripture. It does not ask you to pretend the darkness is not there. It does not require you to close your eyes to what is real. It invites you to see the darkness the way it actually is, not as a threat, not as evidence of abandonment, not as the environment in which the enemy has the advantage, but as the soft, safe, God-held context in which rest becomes possible. The darkness of this room right now is not the darkness of an exposed field where you are vulnerable. It is the darkness of a stronghold at night. The darkness inside walls that are holding, inside a fortress that is not going to fall, inside a covering that has already proven itself sufficient against everything that tried to breach it. This darkness is safe. Because the Lord is in it. Because the Lord is between you and everything beyond it. Because whatever exists on the other side of these walls, whatever spiritual forces have been at work in this battle, whatever plans have been laid against your peace, whatever darkness has been pressing against the edges of your life, it is all on the other side of a God who has taken his position and is not moving. And a God who has taken his position between you and the dark is not a temporary arrangement. He is not holding this ground until something more urgent requires his attention. He is not going to step aside when the night gets long. He does not grow tired. He does not lose focus. He does not get distracted. He stands immovable, present, light-bearing, salvation-carrying, stronghold being through every hour of this night, through every hour of every night that follows, through every dark season and every spiritual battle and every moment when the weight feels too heavy and the enemy feels too close. He is between you and all of it. Right now, in this breath, in this room, in this specific, ordinary, unremarkable to the world, but completely known to God moment, he is there, standing, holding, shining, being everything that fear said he would never be in time, being everything that discouragement said was too much to hope for, being exactly the light and the salvation and the stronghold that Psalm 27 declared he was. Not in some future moment when you have finally earned the fullness of his presence, but now. Here, tonight. Whom shall you fear? Let the question settle into your body the way a stone settles into still water. Let it sink past the surface of your mind, past the place where the fear has been living, all the way down to the deepest place. The place where the real answer lives. The place where the soul knows things that the mind has not yet caught up to. And let the answer rise from that deep place, slowly, without effort, the way truth always rises when it has been given enough silence to be heard. No one, nothing, not tonight, not while the Lord is standing where he is standing, not while the light is burning, not while the stronghold holds. And the stronghold, the living, present, unbreachable, God-occupied stronghold of his own being, surrounding your life and covering your sleep and holding the space of this room, has never once, in all of history, in all of the battles it has ever been the answer to, failed to hold. It is holding right now. And something is beginning to happen in your body that no effort produced and no willpower created. A releasing, a softening, a gentle and irresistible descent into the kind of rest that only becomes possible when the soul has finally, fully believed that it is safe. Not because the circumstances changed, not because the battle resolved, but because the Lord took his position, because the light came on, because the stronghold proved itself immovable one more time. You do not have to find courage tonight. You only have to recognize what is already standing between you and the dark. And now that God is stationed here, now that the light is burning and the stronghold is holding, and fear has found it has nowhere left to stand, something begins to happen to the body that no discipline could produce and no technique could manufacture. Something begins to move through the physical space of who you are, through muscle and breath and bone, and the quiet electrical hum of a nervous system that is finally receiving the signal it has been waiting for. The signal that says, you are safe. You can let go. You can rest. That signal is coming through now, and chapter 5 carries it all the way in. The fire that feels like peace. There is a moment that comes in every deep surrender where something changes direction. For a long time, for most of the night, for most of the season, for most of the battle, everything has been moving outward. The prayers going up, the fears pressing in, the vigils maintaining its constant outward scan of the horizon for the next thing that might require your attention, your defense, your management. The soul in a state of warfare is always oriented outward, toward the threat, toward the enemy, toward the circumstances that need to shift before peace becomes possible. It is exhausting in a way that is almost impossible to describe to someone who has not lived it. The way the body never fully rests when the soul is still on watch. The way even sleep becomes shallow when something underneath waking consciousness is still scanning, still listening, still bracing for the thing that might be coming. But there is a moment when that changes direction, when everything that has been moving outward, all that vigilance, all that bracing, all that effortful holding of the perimeter begins very slowly to move inward instead. Not inward like retreat, not inward like defeat, inward like water returning to its source, inward like a breath that it held for a very long time, finally, completely releasing. Inward like the fire of God, which has been burning outward this entire time, consuming every threat, routing every darkness, driving back every spiritual force that dared to press against the boundary of your life. That fire, having accomplished everything it was sent outward to accomplish, now turns gently, quietly, and begins to rest on you instead of fight for you. This is that moment. The holy fire of God's presence does not only destroy. This is something that Scripture shows us in ways that are easy to miss when we are focused on the dramatic, the parted seas, the trembling mountains, the sky splitting open for a descending God. The fire of God's presence has another quality entirely, one that is just as real and just as powerful and just as specifically intended, and it is this: it warms, it purifies, it rests. The same fire that fell on Mount Carmel and consumed the sacrifice in the altar and the water in the trench and the very stones themselves, that fire, when it fell on the disciples at Pentecost, did not consume them. It rested on them. Tongues of flame settling gently on each head, lighting without burning, filling without overwhelming, transforming without destroying. The fire knew the difference. It always knows the difference. It knows when it is being sent outward to consume what does not belong, and it knows when it is being called to rest on what does. You belong to it. And right now, the fire is resting on you. Feel it beginning at the crown of your head, not as heat in the physical sense, not as something that startles or demands your attention, but as a warmth so gentle and so complete that the most accurate thing you can say about it is simply that it feels like being known. Like being recognized, like the particular quality of warmth that comes not from an external source, but from the inside of something that has been filled with light. Starting there, at the very top of you, and beginning now, unhurried, unforced, with the patience of a God who has all the time that exists and chooses to spend this particular moment moving slowly through the architecture of a soul he loves. Beginning to move downward, through the top of your head, where so many thoughts have lived for so long. You've been a person who thinks. You have been a person for whom the mind has been both refuge and battleground. The place where you processed and planned and worried and wondered and prayed and doubted and believed and doubted again. The mind has worked so hard. It has carried so much. It has tried with the particular earnestness of a mind that genuinely loves God and genuinely wants to understand, to think its way through things that were never meant to be thought through, things that were meant to be felt, received, rested in. And the fire moving through the crown of your head right now is not asking your mind to understand anything new. It is asking it to rest, to lay down the processing, to stop trying to figure out the mechanism by which all of this is working, and simply allow the working of it to be felt in the body, where God so often does his most intimate work. Let your mind be still, not empty, Stillness and emptiness are not the same thing, and God is not asking you to vacate your own consciousness, but still in the way that water becomes still, not gone, not absent, but no longer agitated by the wind. Still enough to reflect, still enough to receive, still enough to feel the fire moving through it without trying to analyze what the fire is made of or measure whether it is real by the standards the daylight mind uses to measure such things. The daylight mind is not in charge right now. Something older and deeper and more trustworthy than the daylight mind has taken the watch. And the daylight mind, the part of you that has been working so hard for so long, is being given permission to rest. It is safe to stop thinking now. The fire moves from the crown of your head into the space behind your eyes, that particular area where so much tension has accumulated, where the strain of looking for too long at things that hurt has left its residue, where the eyes themselves carry the tiredness of a person who has seen hard things and kept going anyway. Let the fire move here. Let it be warm and slow and thorough. Let it reach the tension that lives at the corners of your eyes, the tightness at your temples, the subtle ache across the forehead that you have probably stopped noticing because it has been there long enough to become the new baseline. The fire does not require you to consciously release these things. It moves through them the way warmth moves through cold hands, not by asking the hands to cooperate, but simply by being warm and allowing warmth to do what warmth does. Your face is softening now. The jaw. Notice the jaw. This is where the body stores so much of what the mind tries to manage. The words that were swallowed, the responses that were held back, the grinding effort of maintaining composure through things that deserve to be mourned, the bite-down steadiness of a person who kept going when stopping would have been entirely understandable. Let the jaw release now, not by forcing it, simply by noticing it, bringing it gently into the awareness of this moment, and allowing the fire that is moving through this area to do what it came to do. There is a softening that happens here when the fire reaches it, a quiet opening, a release so small that the world would never notice it, but so significant that the soul feels it as something close to relief. The fire continues downward into the neck and shoulders, the great storehouse of burden. If the body were to map the spiritual battles of the past season, if it were to draw a picture of what carrying too much for too long looks like in flesh and muscle and bone, it would look exactly like what lives in your shoulders right now. The elevation that never quite came down. The holding pattern that became the permanent position. The weight that settled there so gradually that you stopped registering it as weight and simply began to understand it as the shape of your body, the normal geography of how it feels to be you. The fire reaches this place now, moving through the top of your shoulders, across the back of your neck, down through the muscles that run along either side of your spine, moving slowly, thoroughly, with a patience that does not rush because it does not need to. Let it be thorough here. There is no hurry. The fire has all night. God has all night. And you have been given this night, this specific gift of hours in which the only thing being asked of you is to receive. You have all night too. So let the warmth be slow here. Let it work through the layers. Let it reach the tension that is so deep it has almost become structural, the holding that goes below muscle into something closer to the cellular memory of stress. The place in the body that stores not just today's burden, but the accumulated weight of every day before it that was too much and was born anyway. The fire reaches all of it. Nothing is too deep for it. Nothing is too long held to be released by it. Nothing in the body has been carrying something that the fire of God's presence cannot move through and warm and loosen and restore. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. The word wounds in that passage is not limited to the spiritual or the emotional. It encompasses the physical expression of what the soul has endured, the way suffering writes itself into the body, the way the weight of spiritual warfare leaves traces in the flesh of the person carrying it. God binds those wounds. He moves through those traces. He reaches those places that nobody else can see and nobody else could reach. And he is thorough about it in a way that only a God who made the body and fully understands what it can hold and what it was not designed to hold could be. Breathe now, slowly. Feel the chest rise. Feel the particular quality of this breath, different from the breath you were taking an hour ago, different even from the breath you were taking 10 minutes ago. Deeper, slower, less effortful. The diaphragm releasing in a way it has not released all day. The ribs expanding in a way that feels almost unfamiliar, like remembering a way of breathing that you once knew and gradually forgot as the days got harder and the breaths got shallower and the body learned to breathe around the weight rather than fully through it. The fire is in your chest now. Right in the center of it, in the place where the heart lives, in the place where hope lives when hope is present, and where its absence is most acutely felt when it is not. This is the most sacred geography of the body, the most intimate territory the fire enters, and it enters it gently, the way God always approaches the heart, with a tenderness that is proportional to how much it has been through. The heart that has been in a battle is not approached with force. It is approached with the particular, unhurried tenderness of a God who knows exactly how much courage it took to keep beating through everything this heart has been through, and who honors that courage not with a speech, but with warmth. Let the fire rest here, in the center of your chest, where the weariness has been deepest, and the hope has sometimes felt thinnest, and the distance between where you are and where you long to be has sometimes felt unbridgeable. Let the fire rest here and be warm and be still and be present in the way that only God's presence can be present, filling without overwhelming, illuminating without exposing, warming without burning, restoring without demanding, that you first explain everything that needed restoring. He already knows. He has always known. Every ache in this chest, every grief that did not have a name, every longing that did not have an answer, every prayer that went up and seemed to return only silence, every morning that asked more of you than you felt you had to give, and yet somehow you gave it anyway. He has known all of it. He has been present in all of it, even when his presence felt like absence, even when the silence felt like distance, even when the darkness felt like evidence of abandonment, rather than the context in which he was doing some of his most intimate work. He was there. He is here. And the fire resting in your chest right now is not a new arrival. It is the same presence that has been with you through every hard thing. Only now, in this stillness, in this surrender, you are still enough to feel it. The warmth is real. Let it move further now, downward through the abdomen, where anxiety so often makes its home, where the body registers fear before the mind has named it, where the gut knowledge of spiritual battle lives in a language that has no words. The fire moves through here with a particular thoroughness, because this is where so much has been stored. The held breath of uncertain seasons, the bracing against outcomes that hadn't happened yet, the chronic low-level alert of a body that has been in a prolonged spiritual battle and has learned to never fully stand down. The fire is asking it to stand down now. Not because the battle is forgotten, not because the circumstances that created the tension have all resolved, but because the battle has been given to someone who does not need your nervous system to stay on alert in order to fight it effectively. God does not require your vigilance tonight. He does not need you to maintain watch so that he can rest. He is the one who neither slumbers nor sleeps, the one who keeps watch over those he loves through every hour of every night without fatigue, without distraction, without the diminishing returns that come to every human capacity that is pushed past its limits. He is on watch, which means your body, your dear, exhausted, faithful, battle-worn body, is off duty. Let it receive that. Let the abdomen soften. Let the hips release. Let the legs, which have been carrying you through so much for so long, feel the surface beneath them fully. Feel the support of what is holding them. Feel the permission to be heavy in a way that is not burden, but rest. The fire moves down through the legs now, through the thighs and the knees and the calves, all the way to the soles of the feet. The feet that have kept walking when walking was hard, that have kept moving forward through days that gave no visible reason to keep moving forward, that have carried the whole of you through a season that asked more than it gave. The fire honors them. It moves through them slowly, warmly, thoroughly, reaching every place that has been working hard, warming every place that has been holding tension, releasing every place that has been bracing. And as it reaches the very end of you, As the warmth completes its slow journey from the crown of your head to the soles of your feet, something shifts in the quality of the stillness in this room. Something settles, something that has been slightly elevated, slightly activated, slightly on alert throughout this entire process of prayer and surrender. It finds its resting position, like a compass needle finding north after being spun, like a gyroscope achieving its stable axis, like a body remembering, at a level below thought, what it was designed to feel like when it is fully, completely, unconditionally at peace. This is what God's fire feels like when it rests. Not the fire of the battlefield, not the consuming, routing, earth-shaking fire of Psalm 18 moving outward through spiritual darkness. This is the fire of the presence, the fire of the burning bush that was not consumed, the fire of the pillar that guided and warmed and never left, the fire of Pentecost that rested on each head and changed the interior quality of everyone it touched. Not by burning away the person, but by illuminating them from within, by filling the spaces where fear used to live with a light that fear cannot coexist with. That fire is in you now, not coming, not approaching. In you, moving through you, resting in you, warming the deep places, loosening the held places, filling the empty places with something that the world did not give and the world cannot take away. The peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. This is that peace, not the peace that makes sense given the circumstances, not the peace that arrives when everything is resolved and every question is answered and every battle is visibly won. The peace that transcends understanding, the peace that has no rational explanation because it is not the product of rational processes. The peace that is simply what remains when God is present and the soul finally believes it. You believe it right now, not perfectly, not without the occasional flicker of a thought that tries to reintroduce the anxiety, that tries to remind you of the unresolved things, that tries to pull your attention back to the open loops and the unanswered questions and the circumstances that have not yet shifted. Those thoughts are not wrong for arising. They are simply the momentum of a mind that has been in a different mode for a long time. But notice what happens to them now. Notice how they arise with less force than before, how they find less purchase in the atmosphere of this room, how they move through your awareness the way clouds move through a sky that is fundamentally clear, present for a moment, and then gone, without having changed the essential quality of the sky itself. The sky of your soul is clear tonight. Not because the storms are gone forever, not because the battles will not return in some form, in some season, in some future moment that tonight cannot see, but because right now, in this breath, in this room, in this hour, the fire has done its work, both outward and inward, and what remains is peace, real peace, the kind that the Bible says passes understanding, the kind that your body is registering right now in the heaviness of your eyelids and the depth of your breath and the way the surface beneath you feels more solid and more supportive than it did when you first lay down. The kind that is not a feeling you produced, but a presence you received. Every anxious thought that rises is being met before it reaches you. This is what Psalm 91 verse 11 means in the most intimate possible sense. He will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. All your ways, including the interior ways, the pathways of thought and worry and anticipation along which fear travels toward your peace. The angels are not only guarding the perimeter of your physical space tonight, they are guarding the pathways. They are meeting the anxious thought before it arrives. They are intercepting the voice of accusation before it finds an ear. They are standing in the way of everything that would disturb this peace. Not violently, not dramatically, but with the quiet, thorough, utterly faithful efficiency of beings who have been given a specific assignment and who do not fail at their assignments. You are thoroughly guarded tonight, inside and out, above and beneath, in the seen realm and the unseen, in the physical space of this room and in the interior geography of your soul. The fire has moved through every part of you, and where the fire has been, peace has followed. Not as a secondary effect, not as a byproduct, but as the very nature of what God's presence produces in the places it inhabits. Where God is, peace is. And God is here, in this room, in this body, in this breath, in the warmth that is still present in your chest and your shoulders and the crown of your head. The fire does not leave when you sleep. This is perhaps the most important thing to carry into the next few minutes, as the boundary between waking and sleeping begins to soften, and the words of this prayer begin to blur gently at the edges, the way all things blur when rest is finally near. The fire does not require your consciousness to sustain it. It does not depend on your active belief to remain present. It is not maintained by your effort or your focus or your ability to stay awake and attentive to the spiritual reality of this moment. It is maintained by God, by the God who is the same yesterday, today, and forever, who does not change when your awareness shifts, who does not withdraw when your eyes close, who does not diminish in the hours of deep sleep when you are furthest from the ability to perceive his presence. He will be here when you are asleep exactly as fully as he is here while you are awake. The fire will be burning in the morning. The peace will still be present when the first light comes through the window and the world begins to reassemble itself around you. The covering will still be in place. The stronghold will still be holding. The angels will still be at their stations. The God who took his position between you and everything dark will still be standing exactly where he stood when you fell asleep. Immovable, faithful, light-bearing, fully present, fully committed to the life he placed inside you and the purposes he built you for, and the future he has been preparing in the very seasons that have felt most like setback. Nothing that matters will have changed while you slept. Everything that matters will have continued to be completely held. So let the eyelids be what they are asking to be right now, heavy in the best possible way, heavy the way ripe fruit is heavy, full of something good, ready to release. Let the breath be what it is becoming, slower, deeper, more rhythmic, the body finding the pattern it was made for when it is truly, finally at rest. Let the thoughts be what they are becoming, softer, less insistent, more like the texture of a dream already beginning than like the sharp-edged content of a waking mind. Something is being restored right now as the body begins its full release. And what is being restored, what is being quietly, thoroughly, lovingly returned to you in this place of surrendered rest, is something the battle tried to take, and something God has been keeping safe for exactly this moment. Chapter 6 carries it in. What God is restoring while you sleep. There is something God does in the night that he does nowhere else. Not in the busy hours of the day, when the light is full and the world is loud and the demands of living crowd out the quieter work. Not in the moments of active prayer, as sacred as those moments are. When the soul is engaged and the mind is present and the will is participating consciously in the exchange between the human and the divine. There is a work that God reserves for the surrendered hours, the hours when you have laid down everything you were carrying, and the last act of your waking life was simply to trust that he would hold what you could no longer hold. In those hours, in the soft darkness of genuine rest, in the space that sleep creates between one difficult day and the next, God does something that waking cannot produce, and effort cannot accelerate, and willpower cannot manufacture. He restores, not repairs, though he does that too. Not fixes, as though what has been broken in you is a mechanical problem requiring a mechanical solution. Restores, in the way that word is used in the oldest and deepest sense, carrying within it the image of something being returned to its original condition, something being brought back to the state it was in before the damage occurred, something being given back its former beauty and strength and wholeness, not as an approximation of what it once was, but as the very thing itself, fully present, fully alive, fully functioning in the way it was always designed to function. He grants sleep to those he loves. Psalm 127:2. A verse so small it is easy to pass over, so quiet it is easy to underestimate. But sit with what it actually claims. The sleep God gives to those he loves is not simply the biological process of the body cycling through its stages of rest. It is a gift, a specific, intentional, personally given gift. The word grants carrying within it the image of a king, bestowing something of value on someone he has chosen to honor. God is granting you something tonight. Not because you performed well enough to earn it, not because you prayed the right prayers or felt the right things or demonstrated the right quality of faith. Because he loves you. The sleep that is coming, the deep, full, restoration carrying sleep that your body is already moving toward, is one of the ways God expresses his love for you tonight. It is not an escape from the battle. It is not a pause in your spiritual life. It is an active, intentional gift from a God who knows exactly what you need and who gives generously without finding fault. This sleep is a gift being unwrapped right now. And inside it, inside the hours of rest that are opening before you like a deep, safe, God-held space, something is being returned to you that the battle tried to take. Not one thing, several things. Things that were taken so gradually you may not have noticed the taking. Things that diminished slowly over the days and weeks and months of carrying more than you were designed to carry alone. Things that spiritual warfare consistently targets because they are the very things that make you most fully yourself, most fully alive to God's purposes, most fully dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. The first thing being restored tonight is your sense of being beloved. This is the thing the enemy targets first and most consistently, not your circumstances, not your resources, not even your peace, though he targets all of those too. He targets the deepest foundation, the bedrock identity, the thing that everything else in your life is built on. He targets the simple, unshakable knowledge that you are loved by God, not because of anything you have done, not contingent on any performance, not at risk from any failure. That knowledge, when it is intact, makes you virtually undefeatable. When you know you are beloved, when it is not just a theological proposition you assent to, but a living reality you inhabit, fear loses its leverage. Accusation loses its sting. The voices that catalog your inadequacies find that they are speaking into a space that has already been filled with a truth they cannot displace. So the enemy works to erode it. Not all at once. That would be too obvious, would be too easy to recognize and resist. Gradually, through the accumulation of hard days, through the silence that follows prayers that seem to go unanswered, through the voice that speaks in the night hours and says, if you were really loved, this would not be so hard. If you were really his, this would have changed by now. Through the subtle, persistent suggestion that the love of God is something you are always slightly outside of, always reaching for, always not quite secure enough in to rest completely. That erosion, over time, creates a particular kind of weariness that is different from physical tiredness and different from emotional exhaustion. It is the weariness of a soul that has been working hard to feel loved rather than simply resting in being loved. God is restoring that rest tonight. As you sleep, in the hours that are opening before you, in the deep quiet where the eroding voices cannot follow, something is being rebuilt at the foundation. Not through argument, not through a series of convincing propositions presented to the sleeping mind, but through the simple, wordless, cellular reality of being held by God while you are completely unable to do anything to deserve or maintain the holding. There is no more honest portrait of grace than a sleeping person. There is no moment in which you are more unable to earn anything, more incapable of performing anything, more entirely dependent on something outside yourself to sustain you. And it is precisely in that moment that God does his most generous work. While you sleep, he holds you. While you sleep, he guards you. While you sleep, he speaks into the deepest parts of you, below the level of conscious thought, in the language the soul understands before the mind learns words. And he says the thing that needs to be said more than anything else. You are mine. You are loved. You have always been loved. You will always be loved. Nothing that has happened has changed this. Nothing that will happen can change this. You are not loved because of what you do. You are loved because of who I am. And I do not change. That word is being spoken into you right now. Even now, as the boundary between waking and sleeping softens, as the words of this prayer begin to blur at the edges, as your conscious mind releases its grip on the need to track and monitor and understand, that word is going deeper, finding the places where the erosion occurred, filling them back in, restoring the foundation to its original solidity, the bedrock identity to its original clarity, the knowledge of being beloved to its original, effortless, requiring no maintenance aliveness. You will wake up knowing something you have been trying to remember. The second thing being restored tonight is your sense of purpose. Spiritual warfare, when it is sustained over time, does something specific to the soul's relationship with purpose. It does not usually attack the belief that purpose exists. Most people who love God maintain, at the level of intellectual conviction, that God has a plan and that their life is part of it. What it attacks instead is the felt sense of that purpose, the interior quality of being aimed at something, of moving towards something, of carrying something inside you that is alive and growing and connected to the larger story God is writing. That felt sense is different from the theological conviction. It is the difference between knowing intellectually that spring follows winter and feeling the first warm day after a long cold season. Both are true, but only one of them changes something in the body. The battle has been targeting your felt sense of purpose through the discouragement that follows seasons of effort without visible result, through the comparison that suggests everyone else is living their calling while you are still trying to locate yours, through the accusation that what you have to offer is not significant enough, not refined enough, not ready enough, not enough in whatever particular dimension the voice of the enemy has most successfully convinced you that you fall short in, through the exhaustion that makes even things you once loved feel like labor, through the slow, grinding suggestion that maybe the fire you once felt was an emotion rather than a calling, a feeling rather than a foundation, something that belonged to a more naive version of yourself, rather than something that is still entirely true and still entirely alive and still entirely at work in the purposes of God. That suggestion is a lie. And tonight, God is restoring what it tried to steal. In the sleep that is coming, in the deep God-held hours ahead, something that went quiet in you is going to find its voice again. Not loudly, not dramatically. In the way that genuine restoration always works. Quietly, from the inside out, like seeds germinating in dark soil, like roots strengthening before the shoot appears above the ground, like the deep interior work of growth that happens invisibly and then one day is simply, undeniably present. You will not necessarily feel it happening. You will feel the result of it, in the morning or in the days that follow, in a moment when something rises in you that you had forgotten was there, a clarity or a desire or a sense of direction that emerges from somewhere deeper than the thinking mind. God is tending that in you right now. As you rest, He moves through the places where the fire of purpose was banked low by the long season of battle, and He breathes on it. The way He breathed on the dry bones in Ezekiel's valley, not as a desperate measure, not as a last resort, but as the natural, effortless expression of a God whose breath is life itself, whose attention toward a thing is enough to restore it to full vitality. He breathes on what has gone quiet in you. He tends what the battle tried to extinguish. He is faithful to the gifts He placed inside you, more faithful to them than you have been able to be in the hardest seasons, because His faithfulness does not fluctuate with the difficulty of the circumstances. What He put in you is still in you. Every gift, every calling, every seed of purpose that He planted before you were born, none of it was lost in the battle. Some of it went underground, yes. Some of it went quiet, went dormant, retreated to the deep places the way living things retreat in winter. Not because they have ceased to live, but because the season required a different mode of life, a preserving rather than an expressing, a holding rather than a releasing. But underground is not gone. Dormant is not dead. And the season that required the retreat is giving way, even now, even in this sleep, even in this ordinary dark room, to something that is beginning, very slowly, at the level below consciousness, to move toward the surface. Your purpose is intact. The third thing being restored tonight is your capacity for joy. This one is perhaps the most tender. Joy is not happiness. That distinction matters here because happiness is responsive to circumstance and joy is not. Happiness rises and falls with the quality of the day, the outcome of the situation, the presence or absence of the things that feel good. Joy is different. Joy is the deep, settled, almost irrational conviction that God is good and life in Him is good and the future He is preparing is good. A conviction so foundational that it can coexist with grief, can survive disappointment, can remain present even in the middle of a battle, even in the hardest season, even in the longest night. But joy, when it has been under sustained pressure, does not disappear all at once. It dims. it becomes harder to access, not because it is gone. Joy that is given by God cannot be taken by the enemy. It can only be obscured, the way a light is obscured when enough layers of dust accumulate on the glass. The light is still burning. The source is unchanged. But the quality of illumination that reaches the interior life has been diminished by the accumulation of hard things, of disappointments, of the slow dulling that comes from too many days of carrying too much without sufficient rest. God is wiping the glass tonight. Not aggressively, not the way you would clean something with impatient force, with the same unhurried thoroughness with which the fire moved through your body in the last chapter. Deliberately, gently, layer by layer, going all the way back to the original clarity, not stopping when the glass looks good enough, but continuing until it is as clear as it was meant to be. In the hours of sleep ahead, as the body rests and the mind releases and the soul lies open to whatever God wants to do in the unguarded space, He is restoring the capacity for joy, not manufacturing a feeling, restoring access to something that was always there, clearing the accumulation of the hard season from the glass of the inner life so that the light that never stopped burning can be felt with its original, full, warming intensity. You will laugh again without effort. Not because the circumstances will necessarily have changed, not because the battle will have magically resolved into easy mornings and uncomplicated days, but because the interior capacity to receive the goodness of God, to feel it, to be warmed by it, to be genuinely, bodily glad because of it, is being restored tonight in the deep quiet of this rest. Something that the long season made heavy is being made light again. Not light in the sense of trivial, but light in the sense of luminous, in the sense of not weighed down, in the sense of the particular lightness that belongs to a soul that knows it is loved and held and purposeful and on its way somewhere good. That lightness is coming back. And there is something else being restored tonight. Something that does not have a single clean name because it encompasses so many things. It is the restoration of yourself to yourself. The return of the you that existed before the battle accumulated its weight, before the long season left its marks, before the sustained pressure of carrying too much began to slowly compress the full dimensionality of who you are into a smaller, more defensive, more survival-oriented version. You are more than the version the battle created. You are more spacious than the person who has been managing the weight. There are dimensions of you: creativity, curiosity, warmth, humor, the particular quality of your imagination, the specific texture of your presence when you are fully at rest in who God made you. That have been compressed by the pressure of the season. God is expanding you back into yourself tonight. Not into a past version, not back to who you were before the hard things, as though the hard things have not also formed you, refined you, built things in you that did not exist before the fire passed through, but forward into the fullness of who you are becoming, who God has been shaping you toward through every difficult season, every refining fire, every battle that felt like it might end you, but instead built something in you that could not have been built any other way. The fullness of that person, the person on the other side of the compression, the one who has been through the fire and has found that the fire burned away what was not essential and left what is, that person is who you are waking up toward. Sleep is the passage. This sleep, tonight, held in the hands of the God who grants it to those He loves, surrounded by the fire that has routed the enemy and now rests warmly on every part of you. This sleep is not a gap in the story. It is a chapter in it. One of the most important chapters, the one where the restoration happens, the one where what was taken is returned, the one where the foundation is rebuilt, and the purpose is reignited, and the joy is restored to clarity, and the self is expanded back into its God-given fullness. You will not be the same person who wakes up, not dramatically different, not transformed in ways that will require explanation to the people who know you, but different in the ways that matter most, in the interior ways, in the foundational ways. There will be something in the morning that was not fully present when you lay down tonight. Something that has been returned. Something that God, in His faithfulness and His love and His absolute commitment to the life He placed inside you, has been keeping safe through the whole of the long season. waiting for exactly this moment to give it back. He is giving it back tonight, while you sleep, while you are completely unable to earn it or manage it or do anything at all except receive it, while the only thing you are contributing to the process is the surrender of your waking consciousness into His keeping, which is, it turns out, the exact thing He needed from you: the surrender, the release, the laying down of the effortful holding, and the trusting of the night to the God who holds the night the same way He holds the day, completely, faithfully, without losing a single thing that matters. Psalm 27:13 carries what David knew about this. I remain confident of this. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living, not in eternity only, not in some distant future when all things are finally resolved. In the land of the living, in the actual, embodied, day-to-day experience of a life being lived on this earth, in this body, in this specific set of circumstances. David was confident he would see the goodness of God in real time, in tangible ways, in the morning that follows the hard night, in the provision that comes after the long season of lack, in the restoration that arrives quietly and completely after the battle has done its worst. You will see the goodness of the Lord in the morning, in the days that follow this night, in the gradual, steady, faithful unfolding of a restoration that is already underway in the deep quiet of this sleep. You will see it in the unexpected lightness of a morning that felt impossible to imagine from inside the heaviness of the season. You will see it in the return of something you had quietly given up hoping for. You will see it in the moment when you realize that the thing the battle tried to take, the sense of being loved, the felt aliveness of purpose, the capacity for joy, the full dimensionality of who you are, is not gone, was never gone, has been held safely by the God who grants sleep to those He loves, waiting for exactly this season of surrender to give it all back. Wait for the Lord. This is how Psalm 27 ends, not with a shout, not with a triumphant declaration, but with a quiet, steady, deeply rooted instruction. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart, and wait for the Lord. Wait, not passively, not helplessly, not with the hollow waiting of someone who has no basis for hope. Wait with the confidence of someone who knows who they are waiting for. Wait with the assurance of someone who has read the testimony of everyone who waited before them and found that the waiting always ended the same way, with God being exactly who He said He would be, doing exactly what He said He would do, arriving exactly when He was needed, restoring exactly what had been lost. The waiting is almost over. Not because all the circumstances are about to resolve. Some of them may still require seasons of trust that this night cannot shorten, but because the restoration is already happening, right now, in this breath, in this sleep that is drawing you deeper with every passing moment, in the space between waking and dreaming where God does the work that waking cannot hold and effort cannot reach. You are being restored. Every part of you. Every dimension of what the battle tried to diminish, every layer of what the long season compressed, every piece of what the enemy tried to take from you, your belovedness, your purpose, your joy, your fullness, your sense of being held and known and wanted and aimed at something good, every piece of it is being returned. Not because you earned the returning, because He loves you, because He delights in you. Because the God who parts the sky and comes down for His beloved does not stop at routing the enemy. He comes all the way in, into the deep places, into the quiet places, into the sleeping places where you are most unguarded and most open and most fully available to receive what He has always been trying to give. Receive it now. Let the last bit of waking resistance soften. Let the last grip of the effortful mind release. Let the body be fully heavy, fully still, fully given over to the rest that has been prepared for it. The rest that Hebrews describes as a rest that remains, a Sabbath rest for the people of God, a rest that is not earned but entered, not achieved but received, not maintained by any effort of the one resting, but held entirely by the one who does not rest and does not need to, because rest is not something He requires, it is something He gives. He is giving it to you now, all the way, without reservation, without holding anything back, the fullness of His rest, the fullness of His restoration, the fullness of His love expressed in the simple, profound, extravagant gift of deep sleep held in the hands of a God who will not put you down. The restoration is happening. And now that the beloved thing is being returned, now that the foundation is being rebuilt and the glass is being cleared and the fullness is being restored, something else begins. The final movement, the softest chapter, the one that does not ask anything of you at all, that requires nothing but the willingness to be carried the last small distance from the edge of waking into the deep of sleep. You are almost there. Chapter 7 carries you the rest of the way, and he remains, even as you sleep. And now, there is nothing left to reach for, no thought to follow, no weight to return to, no effort to continue, only this quiet, steady stillness that surrounds you, holds you, and gently remains, even as everything else fades away. Your breathing is soft, slow, effortless. Your body is fully at rest. Your mind, no longer searching, no longer holding, no longer needing to understand. And in this gentle stillness, there is a presence that does not move when you do, that does not fade when your awareness fades, that does not leave even as you drift beyond thought. Because God does not step away when you fall asleep. He stays, not watching from a distance, not waiting for you to return, but remaining quietly, closely, completely, right where you are. And even now, as your awareness becomes softer, lighter, more distant, there is nothing you need to hold on to. Because everything that needed to be held is already being held. There is no need to stay aware of your breathing, no need to notice your thoughts, no need to remain present in any way at all. Because this peace does not depend on you staying here. It continues, even as you drift, even as you rest, even as you sleep. And in that, there is a quiet safety, deeper than thought, deeper than feeling, something that settles beneath everything and remains, even when you are no longer aware of it. A steady covering, a gentle presence, a calm that does not break. And as you continue to drift slowly, softly, without effort, without direction, there is nothing left to do, nothing left to release, nothing left to carry, only rest, only stillness, only the quiet, unchanging presence that remains with you through every breath, through every moment, through the quiet depth of your sleep. And even as you fall deeper now, into this calm, into this stillness, into this gentle, endless rest, God remains steady, close, unmoving, and you are safe, completely, quietly at peace.